So we want to calculate the welfare footprint of an animal source product, say a liter of milk, a dozen eggs, a pound of meat, etc. And what does it mean to understand the animal welfare footprint of a product? It means to understand the amount of positive welfare, pleasant experiences, and negative welfare, unpleasant experiences that were endured for the production of that amount of product. And the way we do it in the welfare footprint framework is through a series of steps or analytical modules that we call zootechnical, veterinary, affective, econometric, and epidemiological. Okay, the analysis, the structure is simple. I'll go through step by step, and some of the modules, like the affective module, are unique to the welfare footprint framework, and the other ones can be used in any welfare assessment model as well. So let's say we want to estimate the welfare footprint, for example, of eggs. In that case, the first thing we need to do is to define each of the production systems that we'll analyze. Say that in this case, now we want to understand the welfare footprint of eggs from caged hens housed in conventional wire cages. So for that production system here that we called intensive, I need to understand first the animals involved in the production chain. So the laying hens, the parent birds, the female breeders, the male breeders, the grandparents, the male chicks, and so on. And for each of the types of animals that we call live fates involved in the production chain, we need to understand their life from birth to death, all the life phases that they go through, let's say hatchery, rearing, laying, depopulation, transport, slaughter, and so on. And for each one of those life phases, we need to map and understand the circumstances to which they are exposed. So say in the laying phase, the laying schedule, feeding practices, the degree to which they are exposed to pathogens, litter conditions, space allowance, whether they have perches, they have a nest, etc. Stocking densities, and so on. Both for external circumstances, external conditions, and their internal circumstances, internal conditions such as the genetics for productivity. So, for example, they need to lay almost an egg every day during the laying phase. Now, once these circumstances are understood, the production conditions in the production chain, the key factors to which animals are exposed, then we can move on to the next analytical module, which we call veterinary, to build an inventory of all the biological consequences of life under those circumstances, both positive and negative, both physical and psychological. So, for example, all the injuries, the diseases, the deprivations, social deprivations, behavioral deprivations, all the physiological imbalances, things leading to hunger, to thirst, social circumstances leading to fear, lack of enrichment leading to frustration, etc., etc. So we need to understand those the biological consequences and make an inventory of everything positive and negative that may happen to those animals typically in that production chain. Now, not every biological consequence leads to an affective experience. And what really matters for us in terms of measuring, quantifying welfare are things that lead to pleasant and unpleasant experiences, anything that feels good or feels bad. So if there is a disease that leads to physical pain, for example, then that's an affective experience. And we need to to understand all its possible manifestation, all its possible outcomes. It will be a very different affective experience to experience a disease that leads to death, for example, through sepsis, than if the same disease heals spontaneously. So in that case, we will have at least two possible affective experiences of that disease. Disease leading to death by sepsis and disease that heals spontaneously. So one biological consequence, a disease may lead to these two affective experiences. There may be other conditions that lead to no affective experience at all. So let's say you have a disease that is subclinical, it has no symptoms. In that case, the animal doesn't feel anything unpleasant, any discomfort from that disease. So in that case, there is no affective experience to analyze. And it's really the affective experiences that we quantify. Things like immune suppression. This is a biological consequence of life under certain circumstances, but it's not an affective experience. It may lead to disease, and disease may lead to pain. And in that case, we have an affective experience. So we make a distinction between the biological consequences of life under certain circumstances and the affective experiences themselves. So in the case, for example, of lameness, lameness can be due to many factors, and it can lead to different types of affective experiences. So if it's lameness associated with a gait score of mild gait score of 1, 2, then it will be one type of affective experience. If it's lameness associated with a gait score of 5, then it's a very severe experience, a different affective experience, and we analyze it differently. So we try to define more or less homogeneous affective experiences, so the different manifestations of the biological consequences of life in a given production system. And this inventory of affective experiences is done for each life phase of the animals, and each of the types of animals involved in the production chain. Okay. Now, once we have this inventory of experiences to be analyzed, the next step is the core of the welfare footprint framework, which is the quantification of the welfare impact of each one of the affective experiences, negative and positive. And the idea of this video is not to explain how we do this quantification, but briefly, for each experience, we try to understand how intensity of the pain or pleasure evolve over time. So we have different segments. Let's say for an injury, there would be acute pain in the beginning, then an inflammation phase, then a healing phase, and so on until pain is gone. This could be the outcome. And in that case, we will use existing evidence. We'll conduct a synthesis of existing evidence in terms of behavior, physiology, neurology, pharmacology, anatomy, etc., etc. Every single piece of evidence that is available to inform our estimates of intensity and duration for that experience in each one of the time segments. From that, we can calculate, and it's a straightforward calculation, cumulative time in pain, which for short, we say cumulative pain in each one of the defined intensities. Now, this cumulative pain here is the estimate of the magnitude of negative effect, or in this case of cumulative pleasure, positive effect, endured by one individual that has experienced that affective experience. If there is more than one occurrence of that experience, we can multiply this time in pain here by, how many times this experience is endured. So we have cumulative time in pain of each intensity or pleasure of each intensity for the multiple occurrences of the experience. So this is the core of the method, but of course, when we're working with different production systems, we do not want to understand the welfare impact of each experience for one individual alone. We want to understand that for the average individual in the population. Not every individual experiences every disease, every injury, every frustration, every instance of fear, etc. So we need to take into account the prevalence of the experience that is typical in the production system that we are analyzing. Say that we are analyzing keel bone fractures in egg-laying hens, then and let's say the production system that we're focusing on is cage-free aviaries. So in that case, we may say, well, prevalence varies from 30 to 90%, whatever the prevalence that we estimate. So in that case, we will multiply cumulative time in pain by 30 to 90%. So we get time in pain due to fractures for the average population member. The same thing with positive experiences. Now, time is a universal metric. It can be compared and combined. So we can combine cumulative time in pain due to a fracture with cumulative time in pain due to any other negative experience the animal endures. So cumulative pain due to fractures plus cumulative pain due to frustration from behavioral deprivation, plus cumulative pain due to, a disease, and so on. So in the end, we have cumulative time in pain due to all experiences endured by the average population member for each one of the life fates. If we combine it for all life fates in the production chain, we have cumulative time in pain for the average member of, let's say in this case, egg production chain. And if we combine all the positive experiences for all the life fates, all the types of animals in that production chain, we have cumulative time in pleasure for the average member of the egg production chain, for example, or the beef production chain, whatever the production chain we're analyzing. Of course, to have the cumulative time in pain or pleasure per unit of product, we need to take into account the productivity of each type of animal involved in that production chain. So we divide cumulative pain and pleasure by productivity to have it by unit of product. Of course, we need to take into account mortality, pre-slaughter mortality. We need to take into account the ratio of the different life fates, so the number of laying hens to male chicks or breeders to laying hens and so on. But this is a simple calculation. And once we have that, we express welfare footprints in this way. Cumulative time in pain of each intensity and in pleasure of each intensity per unit of animal product. Of course, depending on your interest, you can combine these 4 levels of intensity in different ways. You may want to say, well, I have this time in pain, in moderate to intense pain per egg, per dozen eggs, or per liter of milk, or per kilo of beef. And then you combine, let's say, hurtful to disabling and excruciating, or you combine positive experiences as well. Finally, we have a notation system that shows what is included in this calculation. So here I don't have the text, but you can see that we can show the different life fates that were used in the analysis, and for each life fate, let's say laying hens, male chicks, and female breeders, and for each life fates, the different life fates. So let's say hatchery phase, rearing phase, transport, then laying phase, there is no laying phase for this one, and slaughter. And within each of these life fates, we can have notation of the different types of positive here and negative affective experiences that were considered. So if we take note of everything that we took into account, then welfare footprints can be compared when done by different research groups, by different analysts, or under different conditions.